Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another review. Today's one's a little bit different. It's not about a horror movie. Well, it is sort of like about a horror movie, but it's more like a horror series just being put out by the BBC called The Reckoning. Now this is a TV dramatisation of the goings on, if you like, of Jimmy Savile. It stars Steve Coogan as Jimmy Savile and has an array of sort of British stars sort of like throughout the show. It's a true story, and it's based on one of the most horrific sort of sexual offenders that the world has ever seen, really. And it was Jimmy Savile who, in the 60s and 70s, was a public figure and very popular in everyone's sort of house. Everyone seemed to adore Jimmy Savile. Anyway, this is based on his life story. He died I think, in the 90s, and it's taken a long time for the country to sort of recover from what he sort of done. And I think it's now. I think this all come about because there was a documentary on Netflix called A British Horror Story, and it was all about Jimmy Savile, which contained real sort of footage and interviews with Jimmy Savile and things like this, and interviews with the victims of his sort of hideous crimes. So Jimmy Savile was a public figure that was adored by the most of the UK. They were all sort of like oblivion to his ways, although when you see clips of him on TV and you see interviews, he's so blatantly obvious that he is a sexual offender, mostly of young girls, underage girls, and probably boys as well. But he was an offender, and this takes him back, and we see Steve Coogan who's playing him, and it tells a story of him through his career when he started to build up as a DJ for Radio Luxembourg and doing all like the nightclub scene in Leeds, because he's a Yorkshireman, and he and he's sort of like his love for his mother, who he's very close to. He never married or anything like that, or got children or nothing like that, thank goodness. But it recreates him and shows you as the monster that he was. Because although everyone adored him, including all the high businessmen and all these sort of things, they all adored him. But behind the scenes, he was a monster. Because behind the scene, all this stuff, that his popularity was just a cover up. And he went on to do loads of charity work for the country in hospitals and stuff like that. But you even see clips of him in this show at the hospitals where he's sort of talking to the patients but still molesting them at the same time. It's hideous how he got away with this sort of thing. And it's all just a big cover up for a big dark secret underneath. And this sort of series follows a guy who's writing a book about him, and he's interviewing him in his later years of life, and he's trying to get like all these sort of like gossipy stories out about him, because there've been rumours that he was a sexual offender for years, and he was dropped on TV big time by Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols, who ultimately did an interview on the BBC, and he pretty much called him out, because the BBC were covering it all up, because in this day and age, obviously they didn't want to be known, knowing that of his antics, obviously, because he'd also received royal awards like the OBE and MBE, and was quite close to the royal family. He was very close to Lady Diana and stuff like that. So all this sort of thing was sort of like they wanted to cover it up. They didn't want anyone to see that the BBC and the royal family were associated with a a serial sexual offender and paedophile. So this sort of goes along his life story, and tells you that story. And it didn't come out, all these stories about his wrongdoings, until he died, which I kind of, it's a bittersweet thing, isn't it, really? Because, oh yes, the sweet thing is obviously now he's gone and no one else is going to be a victim, but the bitter is he's not paid for his crimes. So it's a bittersweet sort of ending to his life. Anyway, this film, this TV series follows it, and it's really quite engaging to watch. And Steve Coogan does a great job of playing Jimmy Savile, and I'm sure he will probably get a few BAFTAs and awards for his portrayal. I can't score the show because it's the story is a horrendous story, and so I'm not going to score it out of 10 because that's not what this is about. It's just giving you like my sort of review of it. I thought it was very haunting and very well adapted and played. And Steve Coogan did it really well, especially the voice. He got the voice down really well. His look, yeah, it's pretty good, but it's way off in other areas, especially when he was playing the young Jimmy Savile. He looked more like he did when he played Stan Laurel in the Stan and Ollie film. But yeah, but it is just a portrayal, and kudos to him for taking on that role. I mean, you'd have to be a sort of, sorry about this, guys, just looks a bit I just realised I'm looking a bit wonky today. Let me adjust my camera a bit there. There we go. Yeah, kudos to him for taking on this role, because that would be it should either be the ending of your career playing a man that is now literally hated in this country and worldwide, but he's took on the role and it's very sort of done really well, quite believable, and the way this was shot was really quite cool. They used a lot of the original areas like the Leeds Hospital and Stoke Mandeville and all the places that he did and he pulled his victims from, because most of his victims were patients at hospitals and from women's sort of like mental health sort of like hospitals and prisons, and he picked on the vulnerable, and that's what he did. He picked up the vulnerable, and it covers a lot of these stories, and they cover it really, really well, as well as they could. But yeah, as a dramatisation, it was really engaging and excellent. The story, I don't like it anyway, because I don't like stories, but it's good that these sort of stories come out, because it's the way of not just, you know, the criminal himself, but also pulling up things like the BBC and all these other people that hushed it down. These hospital managers that sort of hushed it down, although he was doing charitable work and doing stuff to patients, and a lot of these people knew it was going on, but they all hushed up about it and kept it secret. So he was allowed to continue to do this until pretty much the day he died, you know. And they say, oh, it's just Jim being Jim. Yeah, okay. But anyway, it is an interesting view. It is quite a disturbing view. If you don't like to watch anything about sort of like sexual offences or anything like that, or young children being sexually assaulted, then I wouldn't advise watching it, because there is some sort of clips that come. They don't show you too much, but it implies, and I think it can be quite disturbing in that you don't need to see it. It's quite disturbing. It's really well shot. The photography is really well done. A lot of it's filmed up here in Yorkshire, mostly around Scarborough and the Leeds sort of area, because Scarborough's where his mum lived and stuff like that, and he was very close to his mother, and it's really bizarre. He had a very bizarre life. He brought this sort of camper van and went around the country just sort of molesting children, pretty much, and everyone was cheering him on, you know, and clapping him and all this. And then the BBC took him on to higher grounds with his own TV shows, Savile Around the Country or Jim Will Fix It and things like this. You know what I mean? It was sort of like, it was bizarre how. And he was, when you see his interviews, like I watched the Netflix documentary, you can see how blatant he is about the way he is with young girls, and it makes you cringe. I mean, myself and my sister never liked him. We always found him creepy. Yeah, we used to watch Jim Will Fix It. That's just because we like to see some good things happen, you know, to some youngsters and have some lucky things. But how do we weren't to know that they're actually probably more likely unlucky. But yeah, he was cringy, and we all thought he was weird in my household. There was just something not right about him. And I think Steve Coogan sort of pulls that off as well. As when you watch this documentary, you will sort of think, yeah, it's weird. But anyway, it's on BBC iPlayer now. It's over 4 episodes, I believe. Yeah. So and they're all, you know, it is an engaging sort of program, but they're quite a difficult watch. But I would recommend you watching it if you like to sort of like just to sort of find out, you know, how things were. And it's pretty strange now that the BBC have put on this documentary when they were the ones that were like one of those that actually covered it up. But it just goes to show you how the world's changed now. And a lot of things have happened since the Jimmy Savile thing. A lot of other people have been found out for their sort of misconduct with not just children, but with adults and all sorts of things. So it's crazy the amount of stuff that goes on behind closed doors. And this is what this is about. And it's called The Reckoning, and I still think it should be called Behind Closed Doors. I think that would have been a better title. But anyway, I enjoyed it for the dramatisation of it, but obviously I don't like the story, but it was definitely worth a watch. So check it out if you get a chance. Look after yourselves.